Dr. Joanne Anderson is the founding executive director of the South Carolina Education Oversight Committee. In this role, she has nurtured what has become an important policy research center that has raised greatly the level of public discourse and understanding of educational issues in South Carolina. Joanne took her BA and MA degrees from Vanderbilt University and the PhD from Florida State University. She has served as an educational administrator, researcher, and professor at a variety of institutions, including Greenville Technical College, USC College of Nursing, Richland School District 1, and the USC College of Education. Joanne is here this evening, I think, with her husband, Dr. Lauren Anderson. Where are you? There you are. Of the College of Education. Tonight, she will recount her junior high school experience in Shelbyville, Tennessee, with her English teacher, Gladys Hammond.
Well, good evening. I want you to know for about 4 years, Craig Cardell has talked about the shout, and I was a little suspicious, you know. I mean, Craig does have interests that sometimes are not quite mainstream, but it far exceeds any sort of accolades that he may have given it, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I want to, before I talk about Ms. Hammond, just take one moment and thank a group of teachers that about which we're not shouting tonight, but I think we certainly are enjoying, and those are the teachers who taught music to Kenny Carr and the Tigers. I was terrified. The letter had come home to my parents with 8th grade homeroom assignments and academic schedules, and I had been assigned to Gladys Hammond's homeroom as well as to her English class. That meant that 4 hours of every 7-hour school day I would be under her control, and this is the woman who invented zero tolerance. I stand here to testify that Mrs. Hammond was perhaps the finest teacher I have ever experienced. When I think back over the lessons and the gifts of my education, I realize that her intense belief that every one of us could master the curriculum, could exhibit proper public behavior, and could accomplish individual goals has guided my life. I'm grateful I was able to move beyond that adolescent fear and call upon her as I developed my own teaching skills. For when I was in college, like many of you, I had to do practica, and of course, you know, you look for any way to get those hours in, and I would often do them when I was at home, and she always gave me an opportunity to be a practicum student in her own class. So how did I move from being a gangly 8th grader, move from angst to admiration? By diagramming sentences. Today's curriculum does not emphasize this approach to understanding the structure of thought and writing. Today's language arts classrooms are not filled with rulers, and many of today's teachers would characterize diagramming as part of the drill and kill curriculum. Mrs. Hammond taught us to organize our thoughts and to express them properly. We learned more grammar than literature. For most of the school year, our evenings were spent diagramming 20 sentences. That was her minimum. We carefully would lay out the subject and predicate. We'd sort through what were the adjectival and adverbial and prepositional clauses, and we would certainly avoid splitting infinitives. Would placing elements differently change meaning? Not only did the placement of phrases had to be correct, our papers had to be neat. At every step in the process, she emphasized the structure of thought, the analysis of ideas, and precision in presentation. And isn't that what we want students to learn today? Our school divided students into 4 groups, 4 homogeneous groups, cleverly named Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4. And you also could sort us economically. Group 1 was a little more middle class, and Group 4 struggled with their basic existence. If expectations were supposed to differ from group to group, no one told Mrs. Hammond. She gave the same assignments and expected the same results from each group. She varied her teaching and varied the amount of individual effort she expected. Now, there was one very small issue with my membership in Mrs. Hammond's classes. I couldn't diagram a sentence to save my life. My papers were a study in erasures and tears and clear evidence that Blue Horse notebook paper was cheaper and would not sustain much from a number 2 pencil. Diagramming sentences was more alien to me than traveling to Jupiter. Now, Mrs. Hammond responded to my papers with a sea of red ink. But her responses did not stop there. She found time in the school day, with 35 to 40 students in the class, to give me extra instruction. She talked about how ideas should fit together. She gave me extra homework. When my classmates took home 20 sentences to diagram, I took home 40. And every day, without fail, she corrected the 40 sentences and found 40 more to challenge me. She taught persistence and perseverance. Like many others, she realized and told me that I was not my brilliant brother. But she had confidence that I could outwork others. Today, my energies focus on improving schools. For much of my professional life, I have earned a living analyzing policies and practices. The skills of diagramming are mirrored in my work. For isn't what I do lay out clients and services, avoid splitting principles, debate the placement of various policies into the educational system in our community? I diagram every single day. I also have spent a considerable number of years working in politics, and I will tell you that I understand that it requires more persistence than brilliance. Mrs. Gladys Hammond educated. She believed in high standards. She demanded that we learn, and her insistence is imprinted on our lives. Was she young? Was she pretty? Did she know the difference in Conway Twitty and Ringo Starr? I doubt it. But she could teach, and for that, I shout her praises. Thank you.